Hello, and welcome to the Steps to Happiness show on Soul Liberty TV. I'm your host, Teresa Greco, happiness coach, author, editor, writer, educator, and Reiki master. Are you ready to feel the love, peace, and happiness that exists within you? Then the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, my guests and I explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices that can help to realign you with the happiness within you. The happiness principle for today's show is ways to connect with the happiness within us. As a happiness coach, I see happiness as a two-sided coin. If you're not feeling happy, one side of the coin is that there are blocks that are preventing you from feeling the happiness that's always within you to feel. The other side of the coin is whether you're taking time to connect with the happiness within you. When you give up the search for happiness outside yourself, in your possessions, positions, titles, degrees, relationships, and experiences, and realize that happiness is your essential nature, a huge weight has been removed, knowing that you no longer need to achieve, earn, find, purchase, or pursue anything to be happy. The truth is, you can be happy now. That's where happiness is. It is found in the now. However, many of us aren't living in the present moment, but instead living in the trauma, regret, shame, guilt, and mistakes of the past, or in the worry and anxiety of the future. The biggest predictor of how happy we will be in the future is how happy we can be now. So, how can we live in the present moment more frequently so that we can be connected to the happiness at our core? One of the ways we can do this is through meditation. Meditation is that gateway practice to connecting with our spiritual self, where the love, peace, and happiness that we are is found. In meditation, anything that you might have been feeling prior to entering into the quantum field of possibilities is gone. Any frustration, anger, inadequacies, resentment, or stress, all washed away. Knowing that we can escape the trivialities of our physical world and come home to where our spirit resides and be blanketed with unconditional love and strength, gives us the strength that we need to love and forgive ourselves and others more in our everyday life. Another practice that can help us to be more present is mindfulness. When you are present and conscious of the flow of inner thoughts, emotions, and sensations being experienced in that moment, you are being mindful. Mindfulness means having awareness by directing your attention to what's occurring within you and around you at that very moment without judgment or expectation. Mindfulness can take the form of meditation, but for others, almost any activity can be turned into a mindful activity by being aware of what you are doing. Think about what you can be cognizant of through your five senses. Become aware of your breath as you breathe deeply in and out through your nose for at least a minute, longer if possible. Spend time scanning each part of your body as you focus on sensations like the wind on your skin, the feeling of your clothing, or even aches and pains in certain spots. If your eyes are open, observe everything about the scene in front of you. Keep your mind focused while you note colors, shapes, and movement. Eating mindfully. When you sit down to your meal, focus on the different smells that are present in the food and the environment, the texture and taste of the food in your mouth, and chew very slowly and deliberately. By focusing on these details and being mindful of everything going on around you during a specific task or activity, it allows you to appreciate what life is trying to show you and offer you and allowing you to experience in any given moment. Additional practices like yoga, being grateful daily for what you have now, reducing your time spent on social media and technology, and spending time with people who are positive and uplifting are just a few additional ways we can practice being more present to the happiness within ourselves. During today's show, we're going to look at the various ways we can connect with the happiness that we are. With that being said, I'd like to welcome my first guest on the show. She's a certified meditation teacher, breathwork facilitator, and Reiki practitioner. Kelly Ryan, hello, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Now, Kelly, I'm a big advocate for meditation and believe it to be that gateway practice to connecting with the happiness within ourselves. I'd like if you could share how meditation has changed your life and how you have seen it change the lives of those that you work with.
Okay, so meditation has completely transformed my life. I started meditating when I turned 40 and I went away to a wellness retreat. And in that meditation experience on that retreat, I had a very deep meditation where I had an awakening. And it was as if like all the boundaries of my body disappeared and I was, floating around and waves of
Yes.
peace washed over me.
Kelly,
And it was just
exactly. That was me.
heavenly. Yes.
Yes, exactly like
And
that. My awakening, exactly like as you're, and for me was approaching 40 that
yeah,
happened. That's so interesting that it happened to you exactly
yeah,
like that because that's how I experienced it. I was like, what the heck is happening? The
yeah.
floating, the like not there, the like, oh my God, like connecting with a part of yourself that you've never connected with before.
And it feels like, oh my gosh, that's the truth of who we are. And I've forgotten it. And so I
Yes.
actually, I remember thinking afterwards, the last time I remember feeling that way was like when I used to fall asleep on my dad's chest as a little girl.
Mhm.
And you just have that like nothing to do, nowhere to be, everything's okay, like peaceful, connected feeling. And so I knew that I wanted to invite more of that into my life. And that's kind of what got me started in ultimately this path of becoming a teacher.
Wow, wow. And so as being a teacher, what's some of the feedback that you've received from, the hundreds of people that you've worked with in your practice?
Oh, I've seen so many positive transformations. I mean, the thing is, most disease is caused by stress, and stress causes
Mhm.
inflammation in our body. And meditation is a beautiful way to relieve ourselves of accumulated stress from the past, thereby reducing our stress and inflammation, and oftentimes applying love to the parts of us that hurt. And that's very healing. So, I've seen a lot of people heal
Mhm.
from illnesses. I've seen people overcome PTSD, go through difficult transitions and navigate them with a sense of being centered on what matters and calm amidst the storm. I've seen
Mhm.
people overcome a lot of negative thought patterns or habits that weren't serving them or limiting beliefs or stories that they had in our head because a lot of times we don't recognize it, but we spend the bulk of our time living in the past, wishing things were different or better than they were, or worrying
Mhm.
and having anxiety, which is always about the future. And none of that exists in the present moment. And so when people cultivate the practice of, coming into the present moment and being with what is and allowing it and accepting it as it is, they cultivate a greater sense of inner peace and connectedness to all that is.
Yes, yes. And what I love, which I mentioned in my introduction, is that we come to meditation when we are so out of alignment, when things feel like they're out of control and chaotic, and we're not sleeping well, and our relationships are suffering, and we're feeling stressed, and we have no patience, and we're feeling frustrated. Like these are all indicators. It's important for people to know that what the signs and symbols are that are telling you that meditation is something that you need to use as a tool right now because your life is feeling out of sorts, out of flow because it doesn't feel like that when you're in flow. And so I know when things start to get overwhelming for me, I'm like, I need to go and meditate because
Yes.
you go and because if people think that's contradictory because they're like, well, how am I going to sit there and not think about anything when I've got, my world is like falling, around me. My kids are like hanging off the walls and all this other stuff and the pandemic and all this other stuff is that how do you expect me to just sit there as if nothing's going on? But that's exactly what meditation does, that it
Yeah.
invites us to come into that space feeling like that because we know that when we come out of it, it's a totally different experience that we go into. For me, it's that gateway practice that helps us to connect with our spiritual self, that we have our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual self, and we're not taught to connect with the spiritual self, but it's there within us. And as I said, along with your amazing introduction, that it was that moment that I had connected with that part of myself that I had never connected to it in that capacity, that like through prayer I had, I was, and even with that I was praying outward, right? God, I was
Yeah.
brought up Catholic, and God was outside myself. Like it was something my priest told me I had to go to church to connect with God. I said, yeah, but what about if I like talk to him at home? No, wasn't the same, that I had to go to church because that's where God was. So God was always outside of me. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, how is like the that you know, I don't know, the entity or person or whatever it was that created me, that knows everything, and I can't be with, and I can't even directly communicate with that, with the source of all that is, that I needed to
Yeah.
go through my priest, who was a mediator between me and spirit. I was like, this doesn't make sense. And then as soon as I went inward, I was like, oh my God, it's not true. It's not true. That it's like you go
At
inward
all.
to connect with spirit and to connect with your own spirit. And when we do that, it nourishes us. So going back to my point is that it nourishes us when we go there. It's not that we need to nourish that part of us. No, we go there when we need nourishing because
Absolutely. Yeah.
we come out feeling so much better. And so that leads me into asking my next question, is that even though we meditation is that practice that allows us to connect with our spiritual self, it has benefits to nourishing our physical, mental, and emotional self. And so if you could talk to us a little bit about what that nourishing is to the other aspects of ourselves.
Yeah. So that's a great question. I think that one of the primary benefits that's not often talked about as it relates to meditation is that it's a practice of noticing your thoughts and noticing your breath. And
Mm.
so typically you'll use the breath as an anchor to bring your attention to the breath while you're meditating. And then your mind is naturally going to wander. We all have 50 to 70 1,000 thoughts a day. So that's a thought every 1 to 3 seconds. And just like
Mhm.
our heart keeps beating and our lungs keep breathing, when we meditate, our mind keeps thinking. That's just what minds do.
Mhm.
And I liken it to when you go to the gym and you do bicep curls. Every time you lift the weight, you're strengthening your bicep. And in meditation, every time you notice your thought, you're strengthening your ability to notice your thoughts. And so
Mhm.
bringing your awareness to the thoughts, what most people find is that we have a lot of negative thoughts or old stories
Mhm.
that aren't serving us in our mind. The National Science Foundation actually found that 80% of our thoughts are negative. So we have something called a negativity bias. We tend to notice
Mhm.
what's wrong more than what's right. But the exciting thing is we have the latest neuroscience shows that we have actually the power to rewire our neural pathways. And so when we notice our thoughts, then we can use tools
Mhm.
like affirmations to affirm ourselves with positive, nurturing thoughts, or be learning how to be with our thoughts and really be curious about where they came from and
Mhm.
recognize them and investigate them and nurture them. And then we can even choose to delete them or let them go. And there's various techniques. I mean, people might say, oh, that's easier said than done. I've had this thought on repeat for a long time, but there actually is
Mhm.
many, many ways that we can work with our thoughts. And so mentally, it's a very powerful tool. And one example that I'll give is just being able to come from a place of calm and equanimity. I was in kind of a toxic work situation at the time I began meditating, and my boss was rather aggressive and challenging. And I remember just a couple weeks into meditating 5 or 10 minutes a day, he and I were
Mhm.
having a meeting, and he asked me a question, and he didn't like my answer, and he started, really coming at me and exploding. And I was able to just stay perfectly calm and centered and say,
Mhm.
in the future, can I make a request that if you don't like my answer to a question you're asking me, you don't explode at me
Wow.
like that? And he was just like
Wow.
kind of stunned because, I think in the past I would kind of get entangled in it with him and we would
Mhm.
get worked up together. So it's just really powerful in that way. I've had people come out of meditations like, they're meditating for their first time and they afterwards I say, "Oh, did you notice what shifted?" And they were just like, "I was so mad on my car ride over here. I was,
Mhm.
swearing at the person and I'm being so unsupportive to this poor kid who works for me." And like you just come out of it once you receive that connection and nourishment with yourself. And I call it your higher self, your the part of you that, is
Mhm.
divine and completely connected to all that is. Then you naturally want to give from that overflow to other people in your relationship to other people because it is a greater sense of not only connection to ourselves, but our actual connectedness to all that is,
Mhm. Yes. So
including
I
each
love
other.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that example you shared because it's exactly right that sometimes, we go into meditation to expecting this experience when we go in
Yeah.
there and we come out and there's sometimes that it's like nothing happened today.
Yes.
Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing illuminating, nothing like big kind of spark, none of that
Yeah.
maybe kind of that floating that initially like the people at the meditation center and my who I call my spiritual mentors will tell you that I cried for an entire year every time I went there because the experience was so intense, like something that I had never
Yeah.
experienced. And every time I went in there, I was so overwhelmed of by emotion of connecting to that love, peace, and happiness that's inside of me that I wasn't connecting to and searching outside myself for. And so
Absolutely.
now that it's been 10 years that I've been practicing it, there are times that I just come out and I'm like, nothing happened. It was wasn't nothing.
But
But
that's okay because
but
it's all about noticing nothing happened, right?
that's true, but what I'm noticing though is that the effects now are actually translating more to my outside existence. That
Mhm.
my relationships and my interactions with people are different. Even though nothing, there isn't this big kind of explosion of emotions on the inside, it's actually this flow on the outside. And I love the example that you shared, because it was even like me just the other day with my daughter, that she was just like agitated, and I turned around to her and I said, "It's okay." I said, like, nothing's wrong, honey. Everything's fine. Like,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
before I like you, I would have gotten roped up into it, and it would have thrown
Mhm.
me off. But now I'm finding, as you said, that you're able to find that equanimity where it's like, oh, I don't know, stuff just kind of falls off your shoulders, and life
Absolutely,
doesn't
'cause you
affect
have a
you.
higher perspective, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So thank you for
And
sharing
then
that. Now,
yeah,
go
and
ahead.
then also asked about emotional and physical. I talked about mental, but the thing is our thoughts create our feelings. So if you look at cognitive behavioral psychology, our thoughts create our feelings create our actions or reactions, which really creates our life. And so as you're working with your thoughts and cultivating more supportive thoughts, you can also be bringing awareness to the sensations in your body and the emotions that are arising, and kind of let those be your GPS system. And when you
Mm,
notice you're not feeling so good, like there's tightness or tension or constriction, do what it takes to kind of bring yourself
mhm,
back to that place of calm and centered. Like take a few deep breaths, or go out in nature, or take a tea break or a bath, or whatever your thing is. But
mhm.
so that's how it can be very emotionally supportive. And then also, I think kind of there's aspects of reparenting parts of ourselves that have been hurt or traumatized or suffered in the past, and also connecting with um, our higher self and letting that higher self guide us towards the person
Mhm.
that we're destined to become. So emotionally it can be very powerful, and then same with physically. I talked a little bit earlier about inflammation, but I personally was suffering from an autoimmune disease called psoriatic arthritis at the time that I began meditating, and I within weeks noticed that a lot of my pain was subsiding, and some of the rash like symptoms were
Wow.
subsiding. And that's how I got really curious about what the heck was going on and started learning a lot about the neuroscience. And I have seen so many people heal from so many forms of illness and disease through the connection of meditation. And you're right, it's that spiritual connection that I think does the healing,
Mhm.
because it's our
Yes,
body has been screaming at us to listen, but we're on, a hamster wheel, or, numbing or
yeah.
dumbing down or all the things.
Yes, yes, looking outside ourselves for answers. I love how you brought that in, that our higher selves knows what we're, and the answers to the questions that we're seeking, but we're conditioned to look outside of ourselves for those answers, asking
Yeah.
everybody else, "What do you think about this? What do you think?" instead of just going inward. And out
Mhm.
and when you do come out of, often that inspiration is there, but we don't go inward to ask ourselves, what do I need to do in this situation, or what steps do I need to take next, or even just surrendering to the universe to say, okay, you know present what next steps I need to do, like have those synchronicities and serendipities happen, where the right people happen to come to you, and you're like, people like, "Oh, I got like this great idea." It's like, well, if we always went into meditation, we'd always have those great ideas, because it's
Yes,
there when we're
exactly.
tapping into the inspiration. But it's like, "Oh, I got this great." I'm like, well, you can get the great idea all the time. So that actually leads me into asking my next question, is that as a meditation coach myself, I know that I often hear the comment that I've tried and it didn't work for me. So I have a couple things that I suggest, but I would love it if maybe you've heard that same comment, which I'm assuming you would have because of the work that you're doing, of people that have
Yeah.
said that they haven't had success with it. What do you like to recommend for them?
Um, I like to recommend starting with mini meditations. So it's the micro habits that we practice every day that are easiest to build upon. So even just starting with 1 minute, which is some of the most powerful breathing is breathing in and out for the count of five, or breathing in for the count of five and extending the exhale even more sends signals to our nervous system that we're in a safe space and it's okay to rest and relax. So that's one of the fastest ways that we can just kind of drop in, and you can do that. You don't need to be able to, sit still. You can be in line at the grocery store or in the bathroom or pouring your coffee. But sometimes just bringing that simple micro practice into a part of your day that's already routine, like having tea or coffee in the morning, can be a beautiful start. I also just like to remind people that there's no wrong way to meditate. And so there is no way of doing it wrong, but it's the intention to pay attention, and that is meditation, right? And that is what brings us to the present moment. And so there is I think most often people feel like they're doing it wrong because they can't stop thinking. So of course I share what I did
Mhm.
earlier about the fact that none of us can stop thinking. Um and otherwise, people have trouble closing their eyes, and they can light a candle and look at the flame if that's more comfortable.
Mhm.
They can also do walking meditations. There's a ton of walking meditations available online. So those are some techniques. But I also
Mhm.
find that just a little bit of movement before sitting down is really supportive for a lot of
Mhm.
people. So even just doing some cat cows in a seated position, and maybe some spine rotations can just help you settle in when you do close your eyes and come into stillness.
Yeah. And there's so many different forms or types of meditations too that I've experimented with lots of different types to try to figure out the ones that I feel work for me. And thank you for sharing some of those. Is there a form that you think is great for beginners?
Hmm. Um, for beginners, I like to just teach my personal morning practice, which is starts with just kind of quieting the chaos around you and coming into the energy inside of you and connecting to the earth and the sun above, and doing some deep breathing and setting an intention for the day and practicing some
Mhm.
gratitude. So that's what I typically start out with, because I find that when people set an intention, it tells our subconscious mind what to look for. And when we practice gratitude, what we appreciate appreciates, and we're actually training our brain to look at more of the positive things throughout the day. So those tiny practices can have a bigger impact in everyday life and help people recognize the
Mhm.
power of meditation and kind of get excited about experiencing more. Sometimes people who have minds that are racing can do really well with yoga nidra, which is, it's
Mhm.
not yoga, it's called sleep yoga, but it's done laying down still, and it's a guided body scan. And that's
Mhm.
great because it gives your mind something to focus on. So if you feel like you're annoyed that your mind is always wandering off, that can be a great practice. And then I also love breath work for beginners, and it's very the type of breath work that I teach is um, in through, like with an open mouth, in through your belly, up to your heart, and out. And it's done to a curated playlist of music, and it's very different
Mhm.
than what people think of as traditional meditation. We do a little bit of screaming and we bang our fists and feet, and it's a little bit wild, but it's a great way of getting completely out of your head and into your body and releasing some of the energy and emotions that are stuck in our body and creating tightness and tension and pain in our body. So that can be a great relief.
So, Kelly, is your practice virtual now? Because my next question is, how can people get in touch with you after the show? Because I've loved, everything that you've shared, but even, some of these is very last kind of suggestions. I think if people wanted to connect with you, to maybe, check out some of what you're doing, how can they do that?
Absolutely. They can go to anchormeditation.com or visit us on Instagram or Facebook at Anchor Meditation, and we have an online meditation community. I see people privately, virtually, and
Mhm.
I also lead meditations for our community every Monday morning at 7. And then we have a daily practice of intention setting to live life intentionally. And then each month has a theme. It's a 6-step process that's outlined on our website. And I teach the meditations are based on that theme, and then 2 workshops based on that theme each month as well. So it's been
Yeah.
great to gather like minded people in a loving community online. And I think right now we need the support of a loving community and guidance on our spiritual paths more than ever. And I also just, I know you and I are both moms, and I think it is worth mentioning that our children co regulate with our nervous systems. And so,
Mhm.
really, we're setting the tone for our house. And there's so many ways that bringing peace to ourself benefits everyone whose lives we touch. But literally, just like a metronome, when you're keeping the beat for playing music, they start syncing together. Our loved ones' nervous systems regulate with ours. And so, one of the greatest gifts we can give
Mhm.
people is our own inner peace and wellness and wholeness and health.
Yes, yes, yes. It is. It is. It's not only a gift for us, but it's a gift that we give to the world when we do these
Hmm.
things for ourselves. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for being on the show today. You've been a gem,
Thank
and thank you
you.
for sharing so much about the benefits of meditation in our lives.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to connect with you.
Stay tuned as after the break, I'll be speaking with Peggy about other ways that we can tap into our inner happiness. I'll see you after the break.
6 years ago, when I started Solivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit solivity.com now.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So, tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Welcome back. I'm thrilled to introduce my next guest. She's a speaker, integrated life coach, and author. Peggy Silphon, hello and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. I'm very excited to be here with you.
Now, Peggy, you are trained. Like, let me tell you, people, Peggy is trained in so many modalities and practices to do with wellness. And I am so excited to speak more to you today about the ones that you feel help us to connect with the happiness within us, to nurture the happiness that's there at our core, that all we need to do is make time to do that. And so I'm going to ask you, which one would you love to start off with today?
There are so many to choose from, but it really boils down to finding what gives you happiness. And I'll tell you really quickly because
Mhm.
it just happened. My epiphany to happiness was actually I feel the best in the happiness when I'm helping others, like doing this show with you,
Mhm.
being able to share what I know with others really is uplifting. And I actually just did my Talk About Healthy Living podcast about that. and how you can really get focused on doing things that help others, whether it's a phone call to a friend who's in need, or whether it's bringing a meal to someone who's ill and they can't get out, or volunteering at a neighborhood
Mhm.
community program. There's so many ways to reach out, and it does uplift you. You feel great, and some people
Mhm.
actually find purpose in their lives from doing that.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And actually, I had a show, an entire show dedicated to happiness is giving. So, yes, thank you for reminding us of that because it was a couple shows back. So, yes, thank you. You're absolutely right that science has proven that it releases happiness hormones in the body that happen when we give of ourselves to others in some of the very simple ways, like just sharing a smile with someone. We don't know how just seeing them in that moment can make such a difference. And I know it's happened to me where there was one morning that I wasn't feeling very much myself, and some passerby said like "Good morning," and I was like, "Oh, hi." And then I just felt like a complete shift come over me. So, yeah, sometimes just a simple hello, a simple smile can actually make such a big difference.
Or even
Okay,
a compliment. Even
go
saying,
ahead.
"Oh gosh, your hair looks great today." Wow, you feel like, "Oh, my hair looks great today," and you take it in energetically. There's an exchange in that moment that is on a very high vibrational frequency, and it really does make a difference. It impacts you in a very good way.
Mhm, mhm. What I
And
also
it's fun.
loved about what you started off by saying is that it's important for us to know what are those practices that work for us. And so I like to call it happiness toolkit. So in my toolkit, I have all of the things that I know help me to remove the blocks that it might be preventing me from me feeling happy in my day, in my week, whatever it is. And I turn to those things, and that everyone's toolkit is different. That what works for me may not necessarily work for someone else. And so that's why a show like this that I'm so excited about today's show, because I really want to try to present as many options available out there that to expand people's toolkit. So what I found that the pandemic did for me actually was that I had, some things in my toolkit that I thought made me happy. And then some of those things got taken away. I wasn't able to participate in those. And so instead, and so what that did was it allowed me, one, to evaluate the things that I was participating in that I thought made me happy, and to take a step back and say, now that I'm not participating in them, do I feel any less happy? And I didn't. So I was like, well, how much happiness did I think that was bringing me? Because now that I can't do it, I don't feel any less happy. And then what it also provided me with was the opportunity to expand my toolkit by adding in new things that I now have discovered also make me happy, and some more happy than the things that I thought were making me happy. And I also want to clarify is that it's important for us to understand that it's not the activities that are bringing us the happiness, that it's not the events and the parties and the sporting and the networking, that it's not those things, that those things are just providing us the opportunity for us to be in the present moment, to feel the happiness that's always inside of us to feel. That often if we're at a sporting event or at the movies or at dinner and we're completely and fully engaged in what we're doing, we can feel the happiness because we're completely present, and happy, and the happiness is found in the now. So because people think because the pandemic has taken certain liberties away that now I can't be happy because I can't do these things. It's like, no, it's not the things that were providing you the happiness. And so when you understand that, it's very easy to expand your happiness toolkit by finding new activities, let's say, or experiences or whatnot that allow you again to tap into the happiness that's there within you.
Absolutely. And really, it's about feelings, it's what you're feeling. And especially during the pandemic at the beginning, people were feeling terrible anxiety, terrible fears. And those are very low level emotions and vibrations, which are okay to feel temporarily. But if you stay there, it really depresses your immune system, digestion, you feel ill. So it's really important, as you say, to have tools that bring you out of that. And I'll tell you a quick story about my pandemic experience, because I really do believe that adversity leads to breakthroughs. And
Mhm.
I was creating a series called Mindfulness Moments from the Paradise Coast. I was videotaping all these beautiful nature areas where I happen to live in Southwest Florida and tying in a mindfulness experience in it. So I was climbing these boulders on the beach to videotape this beautiful snowy white egret. And it was pretty high up over the Gulf of Mexico, and I slipped. And I didn't want to break my camera, so I went all the way down all these boulders and I crashed, broke my arm in multiple places. But I was in denial because it was a pandemic, didn't want to go to the emergency room or have to really deal with the thought that I might have to expose myself to the pandemic situation in these very intense places. So I just for the weekend dealt with this pain and then realized I needed some x-rays, and really I had crushed it so badly that I needed surgery, which I've never had in my life. So I was terrified, and now I was fearful of the pandemic, terrified of surgery, and I used all of my tools. I mean, meditation and
Mhm.
mindfulness and practicing just movement and getting energy moving through my body. And I had the surgery, ended up with nerve damage, and had a lot of pain for about a month. Still continued to do sound therapies and all these bioelectronic devices. I have frequency devices to ensure the healing more quickly. Bottom line, as I started feeling better, I started thinking about this story that was just surfacing in my mind, and I ended up writing a novel. It's just a crazy experience. Every morning I'd get up and I'd just type at my computer, and I had no idea where the story was going. And it's now won 3 national book awards, and it's called Awakening a Novel. And it's real places. So it starts in Southwest Florida, but it's in New York, it's in the south of France, and it's this woman's journey. She's a middle-aged woman, and she starts questioning, wait, have I lived my life all wrong? And it's kind of her journey and lots of twists and turns. But again, I had no idea where it was going. So I discovered this new tool of escaping into fiction and stories and just being in that place. And it was just a divine experience, but it also reinforced for me so many of my tools. And I will share one mind boggling transformational tool that has really started me on this path of being a personal development coach and doing all the things that I do. And it's called Yoga Nidra. And I know I sent you a recording. Did you have a chance to listen to it?
Yes, I did. I did. And it's amazing that you're talking about it because the guest just before you, she's a meditation teacher and facilitator, and she talked about yoga nidra being as one of those suggestions or types of meditations for people that maybe are not having success with it. And so it's amazing that you're going to talk to us more about that because we didn't have a chance to go in it with her.
So many of my trainings have been with world masters, and I trained in Yoga Nidra with Sri Amritji, Yogi Amrit Desai, and ended up actually writing a book with him, embodying the power of the zero stress zone. And so training with him, I've always been a type AAA personality. I'm from New York City, and I was always crashing and burning and doing too much. And I had to find a better way, or I wasn't going to survive. And when I started experiencing Yoga Nidra with him, I couldn't believe the place I found within myself, a place of calmness and ease where I could actually be more productive with less effort. I could have this effortlessness about everything I did. But the big thing about Yoga Nidra, it's really a yogic sleep, and it is a guided meditation of sorts. I take you through different experiences, but you're lying down on your back the whole time, comfortably with a pillow under your head, eye pillow over your eyes, blanket, whatever makes you the most comfortable. Although I've actually done this with corporate groups and they're sitting in chairs, it works just as well. But it guides you into this very deep level of relaxation where mind and body align, and you enter into this zero stress zone, this place of just really connecting to your authentic self and being empowered to be all that you are with comfort and relaxation. In fact, I just had a student last night who commented that she's found doing this yoga nidra regularly has changed her life in that she doesn't react to things in the way she used to. She used to react with great emotion and she'd be frazzled and upset about everything. And now she just deals with what she has to deal with. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that there are challenges and you'll have to make certain steps to address those challenges, but it just gives you more clarity, more confidence, more ability, and spiritually it takes you to another level the more you do it. So I've actually used it, at the very beginning. I was doing it every single morning before I even got out of bed, and I played tennis, and people on the tennis courts were asking me after about 6 months of doing it, was I on some sort of drugs? And I was like, yeah, the internal ones that I'm activating by doing yoga nidra, because they found that I was being so calm and relaxed and still playing hard, but my personality was easier and I wasn't quite so intense. Although, as you can tell, I'm enthused and I get really excited about sharing these because I know what it can do. And in just 20 minutes, yoga nidra is equivalent to 3 to 4 hours of deep restorative sleep. So I've also used it. I have made many different recordings for different purposes. And I keep one that's just 20 minutes in my car and on my phone. And if I'm really tired and I'm, between appointments, I'll pull in a parking lot, just lean my driver's seat back, uh, put on my headphones, and I will just follow that 20 minutes. And it's like I wake up and feel like I'm starting a whole new day, refreshed and revitalized, re energized.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's really just an
Yeah.
amazing practice.
And Peggy, I love that you just shared that you can do it anywhere and anytime during the day, right? That one of the things we were talking about on the first half was, this idea that doesn't have to be perfect, right? That there's this idea, this stereotype that it's like you have to be cross-legged with your candles going and the incense and you're in lotus with comfortable clothes and that it's like you have to set up this whole and the crystals and you have to set up the whole scenario in order for you to go in there. But it's not. It's like in those moments where maybe you're frustrated at work and you steal into the bathroom and to go into the stall to just practice your breathing and to do the body scan because that's exactly what it is. It's like scanning each part of your body. It's like, okay, now you're focusing on just on this piece. Now you're focusing here. And it's like, okay, do you feel any tension, any tightness, any like, for me, it's always my neck and shoulders. But there were times that I went into my car at lunchtime too, saying like, I just need a reset because like I'm an educator by profession. And I'm like, I'm feeling like I don't have the patience right now that I need. And just be able to go into your car, like you said, for just 20 minutes, or it doesn't even have to be that long, right? Just centering yourself enough to just breathe and concentrating on the breath and doing the body scan is enough for a physical reset to happen, which is incredible.
Absolutely. In fact, I've even created a 3 minute to de-stress meditation. And really, I recommend people download it onto their smartphones and just have it available. Literally in 3 minutes, you can restore and renew. And a lot of it is for a quick pick me up, is really a breathing exercise. Most of us don't breathe very deeply. And would you believe that 70% of the body's toxins are released through our breathing? So when we're working at our computers and we're hunched over, or we're driving in a car, or we're tense and nervous, we're collapsing our lungs and we're not really taking these nice full deep breaths. So even just taking a nice full deep breath in and letting it out and doing that a few times and noticing the effects on your own body, that alone can just put you into this calmer place where you can access your happiness center and really be able to be just more in touch with the whole you. What happens when we get stressed and anxious is we literally disconnect from ourselves. And I studied also neurosciences. So we actually disconnect from the prefrontal cortex, which is the place we make decisions. It's the place we're able to really manage our lives. And we go back to kind of the primitive brain, which is just the fight or flight. And we're just in survival mode. And that's okay for like a minute or 5 minutes, but then we need to recover from that so that we can be empowered to be back in our mind body integration in that zero stress zone and really access our whole self and use all that we have. And we keep going in and out of it, and that's okay too. As you say, you cannot do anything wrong. It's really,
Mm.
we're all an experiment, and you have to figure out for yourself what resonates with you, what works for you, just as you mentioned earlier, Teresa. That's really key, because if you feel like you don't have 3 minutes to take a break and feel better,
Mhm.
then you have to look at your priorities and
Yeah.
figure out how to change it, because really our biology needs rest. That's why we have
Mhm.
sleep at night. And that's the other point of
Mhm.
Yoga Nidra. I've actually incorporated in my Mind Body Fitness for Life program, because sleep is such a huge area that people are compromised when they're filled with worries, or they're nervous, or they have illnesses, there's tension. It's hard to sleep. And so you start developing this insomnia. And then again, you can't function very well. And you certainly can't feel
Mhm.
happy when you feel so out of sorts and foggy brained and not making good decisions, and gaining weight, because when you don't sleep, you gain weight. So
Mhm.
again, coming back to Yoga Nidra, that addresses so many of those symptoms and changes it, because it reconnects you to that mind body
Mhm.
connection, which is the ultimate, the alignment. That's what we need to really function optimally and be everything that we are. And we are way more expansive than we realize. And the more you do these practices that are comfortable for you to do, the more you expand and realize, wow, I didn't realize I could do that. I never realized I could write fiction. I always wanted to, but I didn't know. And now I've gotten awarded for it. So you can do whatever you desire. So sometimes it's just putting more tools in your toolbox so you can open up that potential. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes, yes. Now, Peggy, we have time for one more practice that has been helpful to be able to realign ourselves, realign us with who we really are, to bring that mind, body, spirit, and emotional self all here.
So sometimes we actually need what I call an interrupter. So we're going through a frazzled moment, we're not feeling really good, something's going on. And what I find really helpful are using what we call affirmations. And they're very simple, they're just positive statements like, I am happy, or I am feeling really great, or I am full of gratitude, or just decide after I am, so you always say it in the present, say what it is you desire. And what that does, say it out loud, it actually resonates with all the cells in your body, and all your cells begin vibrating to show up to really produce that affirmation. So it's very simple. And what I recommend to my clients is to write down a list of affirmations that feel right for you, again, that resonate with you. And then anytime you're not feeling good, pick one, say it 3, 4, 5 times out loud. Or some of my clients actually paste an affirmation on their mirror. So, first thing when they get up in the morning, they see that affirmation, and it just reminds them of how they want to show up that day. And it's really powerful. It sounds so simple, but it really makes a huge difference
Mhm.
when you start using it. So, again, I just encourage you to try it and experience it for yourself and see what happens. Miracles, magic.
Yes, yes. Now, Peggy, if people want to get in touch with you after the show, how can they do that?
So, my website is the easiest place to access me, and there's lots of different ways to get there. You can go to mindbodyfitnessforlife.com, or you can go to 3minutes to destress.com, and those will all take you right into my website, and lots of free programs that I have available. I have a gratitude meditation that's 15 minutes and really just a great way to start your day. And gratitude is another high vibrational frequency, so that can really help. So
Mhm.
really, I just want to channel people into areas where they can find real practices, real content, real information
Mhm.
that can help them right now in this minute. So just pick one, try it.
Thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing a variety of ways that we can connect with and nurture the happiness within ourselves.
Thank you, Teresa. It's a joy to be happy with you. I love your energy and everything that you're doing. Your work is awesome, and I'm so happy to be part of it. So, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
We work so hard sometimes. Isn't it time for a break? Take a walk or enjoy nature or maybe a leap or a ride or even a dip. Spending time with a friend or some time alone. Whatever it is, always spend time growing and learning with a Solidity Weekend. Every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on Solidity TV.
I'm going to leave you with the thought for the day. When we realize that happiness is our essential nature, it's who we are at our core, it changes everything. Happiness is no longer something that you put on a goal list to try to find, earn, achieve, or buy. The pursuit of happiness is over because happiness is here now, and all it takes is making time to connect with it. But are you taking the time in your everyday life to connect and nurture the happiness within you? Are you making your self-care a priority? Are you loving yourself enough to take time to connect with the love, peace, and happiness within you? Or are you working 60 to 80 hours a week and leaving yourself very little time to do so? Are you scheduling time in your day to participate in the activities that you know help to remove the blocks to you feeling the happiness is always inside you to feel? When we're really busy, it's important that we do schedule in time to do the things we know help us to be in the now and to feel the happiness in the moment. That we do prioritize our health and well-being so that we can be our optimum self and be the best parent, employee, friend, or whoever we need to be for everybody else, because we can only effectively do that when our cup is not only full, but overflowing. Ultimately, in order to be happy, we have to be happy with ourselves first. Unconditionally loving and accepting ourselves just as we are, and demonstrating that love in the way that you know work for you. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of the Steps to Happiness show. I look forward to being with you again next week.
Connect with Teresa Greco after the show for coaching, workshops, and speaking engagements. You can visit her website at teresagreco.ca or by email at stepstotruehappiness@gmail.com or follow her on Instagram at TeresaGreco_Steps to Happiness or on Facebook at Steps to True Happiness with Teresa Greco.